Please allow me to introduce Paul Roberts, Managing Director of Predictive Discovery.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, obviously, to Paydirt for organising this conference, and thank you for those of you who've come along to listen to my talk. I think before I talk about the project, it's probably important to emphasise that Predictive has been a greenfields exploration company in West Africa for more than a decade, 11 years of operations now, only recently in Guinea. But we've made a greenfields discovery. It really is a culmination of a lot of work. As some people say, we're an overnight success after 11 years. And what we are now in the process of doing is making a transition from being a greenfields explorer, and we haven't abandoned our DNA, if you like, in greenfields exploration, to becoming a development company. And indeed, we think we've got a project that's going to allow us to do that. Standard disclaimer. There's obviously quite a lot of stuff on this slide. There's a few things that I'd like to mention. Obviously, we're very well funded. There's when you have a look at the graph that we're looking there on the slide, you can see that there's two really important catalysts for value in the company. Firstly, on the 15th of April, when we announced the discovery of North East Bankan, tremendous jump up in share price and market capitalisation and investor interest. And then more recently, because we've made discovery of high-grade mineralisation in the core and at depth of the deposit, which is leading to some comparisons, for example, to West African, which also had a similar sort of configuration. In terms of the people on board, we have now quite a diverse board. Francis Harper, investment banker, background, very successful history as a company director for West African companies. Andrew Pardey, operational background, a geologist who led Centamin into operation of the highly successful Sukari mine in Egypt. Stephen Michael comes from a corporate finance background. So firstly, in terms of the team, it's important to acknowledge the people who are in the room here now. So Ian and Bianca and Chris, I'm very grateful for the help that they've been making to us. And also importantly for two people who aren't here who've been absolutely critical in making this thing work. Barry Murphy, he and I have worked very closely together on all of the project generation we've done in West Africa, leading to identification of this property. This is a genuine greenfields discovery. And Amy Anganari, who's our guy on the ground, who's just done an extraordinary job in so many ways that I can't really count. So here we are, we're in Guinea, in northeastern Guinea, in the Siguiri Basin, an area that's underexplored, quite clearly very highly mineralised. Guinea is not very well recognised jurisdiction, but indeed it's a very good jurisdiction to operate in. It's very pro-mining, a large and expanding mining industry, most famous for bauxite production, but certainly there's gold mines that have been operating there for a long time. The Siguiri mine, operated by AngloGold for decades. New mine developments happening, and one mine that's just come into production, large mine, Tricade, just come into production over the last couple of months. And certainly we've been exceptionally well recognised and received by the mining ministry and the government in general. Obviously, social licence to operate is very important. It's a feature of every talk about a mining company. We're very conscious of that. It's very early days for us. We only made the discovery 15 or 16 months ago, but we do have, if you like, nascent programs already ongoing in the district, and they're only going to expand as we move forward. And certainly we've got a very friendly and positive relationship with the local community at Kouroussa, which is only 10 kilometres away from us, and the Bankan village, which lies only 3 kilometres away from our principal deposit, North East Bankan. So most of the focus of interest and certainly most of the excitement about Predictive has come from this Bankan discovery, or the North East Bankan discovery specifically. There is another one just down the road, which I'm going to mention shortly. And essentially what we found with power auger drilling, we found quite a large oxide deposit, quite broad, up to 300 metres wide of oxide, a quite thick oxide blanket, maybe 60 metres thick. So that's a very attractive start. But really what's happened and got us excited and got analysts excited and investors excited is what we've been finding at depth. So we have this shallow, quite broad oxide deposit, not super high grade, and what we've been finding as we've been going to depth, that the widths are sustaining, but the grades are getting better. So this is a longitudinal projection through the deposit. You can come and talk with me about it at our booth if you want. There's a life-sized version of that sitting on our wall at the booth. And essentially the things to focus on here, well, firstly to explain that is a projection to a vertical plane. What we're looking at here in terms of the numbers, the two numbers are aggregate width and length-weighted average grade. And so what you can see is very substantial aggregate widths in the mineralised zone. The mineralised envelope is roughly 150 metres wide. It's a big broad zone, and within that a very significant proportion of it is mineralised. And you can see this kind of concentric contour pattern there, and the sort of the very core zone is a high-grade zone that we've just recently identified, which has got some really spectacular intercepts in it. But the broader pink zone, which is about 300 metres long, it's plus 100 gram metres, very consistent mineralisation, very continuous. The next sort of magenta colour is mauve colour is plus 50 gram metres, and most of that will fall into an open pit. And when you have a look at the cross sections, you understand why this thing works so well. So you can see the envelope on that image. You can see that broad zone of oxide mineralisation. Practically all of the holes are mineralised, 200 metres wide, about 60 metres thick. So lots of economic advantage to that kind of material, even if it's only a gram a tonne, and that's simply because it's more or less continuously mineralised from surface. It's saprolite, so essentially, or very likely to be largely free dig, likely to have terrific metallurgy. There's absolutely nothing not to like about that, and obviously tremendous start to any future open pit mine. As we go to depth, it narrows a little, but we have very significant mineralisation, particularly on that left-hand band, very high continuity, and as we get to depth, as you can see, particularly on this cross-section, the grades improve. So the deepest hole's 50 metres of nearly 12 grams a tonne. And everything that we see on that pit, apart from perhaps a few rats and mice in the footwall, will go into an open pit. So it's essentially perfectly configured for open pit mining, down to what we believe will be a depth, and we're yet to put out the maiden resource estimate, down to a depth of open pitable, down to about 300 metres vertical depth, and then beneath that, there's certainly potential to go underground. And indeed, that potential to go underground is why some people have been drawing parallels to the West African operation. Another cross-section here says about 80 to 100 metres away from what we've just been looking at, 44 metres of 8 grams here, and then a deeper intercept, 12 metres of 6.7. So we're seeing those sustained high grades as we're going to depth, particularly associated with a sheared structural position between the two rock types you see here, the paler colour at the bottom, which is the tonalite, and the green, which is a mafic, so it sits on a sheared geological contact. Another cross-section to the north, again, very consistent grades. So there's the overwhelming message here, and you can see there's this very broad zone of gold mineralisation, a couple of 100 metres wide near surface. So very nice starter pit in the oxide. 3 kilometres away, we have the Bankan Creek prospect, geologically a little bit different, certainly getting some good grades in this material, and it's going to contribute quite significantly, I think, to the maiden resource estimate. We haven't drilled it to what I believe is likely to be the open pittable, economic open pittable depth, so there's certainly room to grow here, and indeed the whole system may have some plunge, and so there's potential maybe to the north, possibly to the south, to grow this as well. And indeed, there's more indications of gold along strike to the north-northwest as well, which we haven't yet tested with deeper drilling. This is just the most recent intercept we put out. These are the last results that we put up for the maiden resource estimate. We are in the process of doing the estimation process, and indeed we expect to get that number out by the end of this month. And you can see in the shallow 34 metres of 3.7. So some very nice grades in the very shallow subsurface out of this deposit. Could be a very good complement to in a mining operation to North East Bankan. And then regionally, there's a lot of potential. So early in the year, we flew an aeromagnetic survey and it revealed aspects of the geology that we really had no idea about before. And indeed, we can see that there's a structure that's running through the permit. We were conscious that we were sitting right on the western edge of the Sigiri Basin. Indeed, what's interesting is that within 10 to 30 kilometres of us, there are significant gold deposits further to the east, more into the Sigiri Basin. But this western position was essentially unexplored. So this is absolute virgin exploration territory here. 35 kilometres of strike to explore. We've started work up there and we're already getting promising results from that. And certainly there's going to be, I believe, a lot more to come. So there's a lot of growth in this project, and indeed the fact that we're coming up to a maiden resource estimate cannot be seen as some kind of endpoint. It's actually the beginning of this story. So it's a waypoint along the way to give the market and certainly those funds who are incapable or their mandates don't permit them to invest in predictive without a maiden resource to be able to do that. But there's a long way to go here, only 15 months in, and certainly we expect to find a great deal more. And indeed, my expectation is, as you find in all of these areas, indeed, of course, as we're hearing about in Marilla, that there'll be potential to find more mineralisation in this district for many years and potentially decades to come. So a little bit of early work that we've gone up to the north. We've been using auger drilling. Power auger drilling has worked for us very well for various reasons to do with the regolith and transported components in the regolith in this area. Early work, interesting. Obviously, we got 12 metres of 10 grams in a power auger hole, a little hole this wide, 80 metres away from any other hole. There's clearly potential to find interesting gold mineralisation on these structural targets that we've discovered using the aeromagnetics. And then further to the northeast, another zone, kilometre long, very nice values coming out of rock chip sampling, where as soon as the weather and access allows, we're going to get up there with an aircore rig, and we're quite hopeful that we'll find something pretty interesting up there. It's this permit's 15 to 20 kilometres away from North East Bankan on a flat road. And then we've got the other fish to fry in Guinea. So this is 150 kilometres away. This is the Kundian project. It's just a few kilometres, 6 or 7 kilometres north of Tri-K. New mine development, thousands of artisanal pits here, a very small amount of previous exploration that was done there by an Australian company, a couple of thousand metres of drilling. The early work has already turned up very interesting results, 6 metres of 32 grams, obviously, in a power auger hole, stopping in mineralisation. So a lot of potential to find more there. Very early days. Not doing any work currently because we're in the middle of the rainy season, but we'll be returning there in October and November once the clouds clear. So here we are on the timeline that we're on. This is exceptionally important and exciting month for us in Predictive. By the time we get to the end of the month, we'll put out the maiden resource estimate. Obviously, we're looking forward to that. We'll also, prior to that, we're going to put out the results of a pretty comprehensive program of metallurgical test work, sort of scoping study level metallurgical test work. So I'll be talking about that in the near term as well. And then, of course, that's going to give us a base to go forward. The important thing to understand about what we're doing and where we're going is there's a simultaneous activity of pushing North East Bankan forward, drilling it to depth. So there's very significant potential to find underground mineralisation to depth. We'll have something to say about that in the next week or two, and indeed all the way through, essentially for the foreseeable future, we're going to be drilling deep holes at depth, regional holes. So there's a lot of exploration going on, a lot of expansion beyond what we're going to talk about in the maiden resource estimate. And of course, what we'll be doing as well as that is starting the internal studies that are required to give us an idea of the economic potential of this project. So there's a lot to watch for. The next 3 months are going to be very exciting, but the next 15 months we're going to make huge progress on this project. And that's the predictive story. Thank you very much for listening.